Hi, my name is CJ and this is my RC channel. Let's go ahead and move on to the front suspension. Do a little cleanup on this first. Okay. So let's start by, let me get these bolts out of here. Okay, let me tell you what I've been thinking about with this steering assembly here. I keep looking at this servo all jacked up in the air like this, and I don't like it. I'd really like to put it down here. You know, I'd like to have it be low. And I would need to have the arm pointing up instead of pointing down. Now that's doable because I could attach this point here to the upper portion of this arm instead of the bottom portion of this arm. It just bolts on. I mean, I know this little edge here is clipped, but that's a flat surface there, and the screw is going to keep it just as level as the bottom one does. It's just as strong as it would be regardless of whether the screw is above or below. It's because it comes all the way through. So I could put that up here, have the servo down low, and then I don't have to worry about clearancing issues because it's all up in the air. So I'm toying with that because I think that would, you know, it's going to dramatically lower it. Well, God, it's not going to dramatically lower the center of gravity. I'm sorry, but it is a factor, and I just don't like that look of having this servo like up in the air like that. I just wish that the mounts were a little different. I'm gonna pause up for the recording and I'm gonna search around. I think I may have some more servo mounting hardware, and I may be able to come up with a solution of my own. The camera shut off on me while I wasn't paying attention. Okay, so drive shaft is on, front diff assembly is bolted on, got my king pins in place. The drive shaft is an issue with the servo setup I've got going. So either I need to get rid of this L-shaped part of the linkage and put a spacer over here, or I'm going to need to, you know, go back to the servo being in the air and the linkage being across the bottom, which I really don't want to do. But I'll see what, you know, got to do what you got to do. So I'm going to finish this stuff up here, and then I'll worry about the steering issue. But drive shaft, like I said, is in, and it is nice and smooth. Everything's looking great. So I've been assembling the front axles here. They go together just like the rear axles. You know, the exact same number of shims were needed to get proper fitment. So you didn't miss anything. got to get that the hole in the barrel lined up so that you can get it to fit through. Now, one thing you may have missed while the camera was down, I had a moment where things weren't fitting correctly. I was putting this piece in, and the hole was only coming to about there, and it wasn't far enough for this piece to go on. And I'm like, what's going on here? So I took the other one of these, this one that hadn't been assembled yet, and slid it in, and it went all the way through. And it's like, well, what's going on? Why isn't this thing going through? And then I thought about it, and I took a look, and the pin had moved a little bit to one side, not even a millimeter, just a hair, but enough to catch on the reese of the bearing so that it wasn't sliding in all the way. It should slide in like this so that you've got, you know, several millimeters here between the hole and the bearing, enough for you to put on a couple of shims, 2 to be exact, and then the hub. And line up the hole, put the pin in with the little grub screw dent facing up. Oops, slid right out. Okay, so that's our left. This is our right. Now, before I start putting this part together, I'm going to go ahead and put together the turnbuckle so I can anchor this stuff together when the time comes. And I'm going to take these extra shims and put them in the Ziploc with the others. That's odd. Okay, yeah, these are a little longer. So these are the shorties. Okay, that's good. Perfect. True. Wrong side. Okay, that's out of bar. Okay, what I'm running up against is there are two different kinds of ball joints here, and I need this bigger one on the outside, but I don't want to. It's like the way these were threaded with the mark is the opposite of the way that Traxxas did theirs. So I should be able to pop these ball joints out and switch them from one side to the other, unless there's something different about these two plastic pieces here, in which case I'll be a little screwed over on that, but let's find out. They look identical. I don't think so. Wait a minute. The balls seem to be the same size. Okay. So, well, let's see. I should finish this connection here. So just like that one, I need to switch these sockets around to the opposite eyelet. Okay, that doesn't go that way. Gotta do it this way. So this way the turnbuckles are all going to be pointing in the right direction. It's nice that restaurants are finally starting to open again, but it's weird going into a restaurant and sitting in there and being, no one, within like 3 booths of you. It's like, I don't know how they're making $1 and staying open. I'm surprised the place isn't, a line out the door, because they can only feed so many people at a time. They got to keep everyone distanced. Okay, sorry about that miss there. Okay, so okay, it's loose. Okay, so we want the notch facing that way. I think we got a similar situation here. I do not understand why I'm having such a hard time getting these in place here. Open this up. Not quite long enough. You know what? I want to put a lock nut on the end of those because that's steering. You don't want that coming loose on you. Looks like we got spacer room here. So they give us a nice little diagram on possible bump steer settings. And they gave us these big washers. I don't see the need to use giant washers like that, but I'm going to measure this up and see what we got here. Okay. So 2 millimeters of adjustability. And I'm going to go for more bump steer. Let's see. Now, what I'm going to do is, I can see why they went with the thicker washers, actually, because, or the bigger washers. They are a little bit easier to work with than small stuff. So let me just confirm the thickness of these. Yeah, these aren't quite accurate. I'm going to go with 4 of these. These are Losi 1 millimeter spacers, and I'm going to go with 4 of them, 2 for each, and that way I can adjust. See, if you if I just did a 2mm spacer, I wouldn't be able to do anything but have it above or below. But with a pair of ones, I can have 2 at the bottom, 1 at either end, or 2 at the top. So that gives you a third option. If I wanted to go a little more granular, I could do a 1 and a pair of 2s, and that would give you even more adjustability. But I think at some point it becomes moot. So let's start by getting that in there like that. And now I can slide these underneath. And then push the screw down through the pair. That's a problem. These screws are too long here. Let's start by shortening this up a bit. Okay, what I'm doing now, taking this off, is I am adjusting one side of this that has gotten, that didn't get turned as far as the other. So I'm trying to level it out so there's the same amount of threads on either side. That looks good. That's going to be too tight. Yeah, bummer. Okay, well, it was a nice try being able to put this flat, but I'm going to have to do it the way I had it the last time, which was up high with the linkage going underneath. There's just no way that this isn't going to be a problem for the drive shaft or for the top deck, one or the other. And I can't afford to hit either, so gotta undo this again. It was a nice try. And those and that and that, and I'm going to need long countersunk screws. And I'm going to need 2 more of these. And 1 more washer, which is right here. So everything was still where it needed to be. And I'm going to be taking this apart before the weekend anyway to swap servos for that new Eco. But it will be worth it, because aside from the weight savings, it's going to be a more powerful servo. And at 7.4 volts, it's going to be faster for sure. So as you can see, I'm flipping these around to the second way that I had it, which turned out, even though it's a little jacked up in the air and kind of fugly looking, solid, stable, and it works. And it gives me the most amount of throw, the longest control arm. So, gotta go with what works. And remember, we have a spacer that goes underneath that arm, which levels it out, so we'll be back to where we were with everything at right angles and or perpendicular and parallel. So as long as we're at this, let's get this switched around first. Don't want to try and do that while it's attached to the chassis. I need to center the servo again. Joy. Okay. Get that as close to straight down as possible. That's gonna work. is bad somehow. Sometimes you get a screw that just wasn't formed properly. Let's go a little bigger. I'm going to do 2.5. I want to make sure that that is nice and low. It's not going to run into the drive shaft ever. And that'll get it right on top of parallel to the floor. Okay, so I've got the 2.5 millimeter spacer lined up here. I can see why that steering thing is notched. That way it can't touch the drive shaft, and that could happen, especially if you increase the servo either programmatically or through the like extending the endpoint. So there we are, more or less. We got to get center going. So I'm gonna look at something. I think the short one should have been here, and the long one should have been here. But I may swap them around, but not right now. Everything looks pretty good. So we have complete steering linkage. Let's go ahead and put on the top deck and just see how it looks. So I could have put a couple more spacers down there. Maybe I should put some underneath the linkage. Wrong way around. Okay, let's see what these barrels are for. Problem is that eliminates the sway bar. So I'm going to have to come up with a solution for that, because I don't want to give up the sway bars. That's not what I'm looking for, but okay. need to be that long. You know, there's actually an advantage to this front sway bar problem, and that is that I never really liked the way the front sway bar is set up. I actually think it's, you know, was kind of done like an afterthought. You know, it sits in a little groove with a couple bolts over it to keep it from popping up, and it's so narrow, you know, that you've got these linkages that are all bent over at it. I might try to find another sway bar, or take one of the rear sway bars, put it up here, and, you know, put a decent set of brackets or clasps or something to hold it. In fact, let me pull one out. Yeah, see, this would be much better because it's a little wider and it stands these guys up a little more. And depending on where you mounted it, could really change things. Yeah, I'm gonna have to come up with something for that, because that would look a lot better and work a lot better. Maybe put it up here like that. Okay, well, I'll come up with something. And I better come up with it by the weekend, or I'm not going to have a car to drive, because I've done all this disassembly and reassembly, but it's starting to look like a real car. I like it.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.